Okay, well, Megan, we are back, and actually, this is the first time that we're recording since I've listened back to any of the episodes.
Me too.
Right, so we recorded a bunch of episodes, started releasing them, and now we're recording a new batch, having listened and released to
Yeah.
five episodes now.
Yeah. One of the biggest things I've noticed is that I laugh way too much.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't think nobody's told me that. I like listening, but Megan laughs too much. I think that's probably the best part of the podcast.
Oh,
actually.
thank you.
So this is the self-help. What is this?
Self-help hangover.
Self-help hangover
episode
podcast.
8.
Yeah, self-help hangover podcast. And has our I don't know. Now that we've done 5 episodes, well, we've recorded what, 7?
Mm-hmm.
And this will be our 8th, right? So
Yeah.
what do you think our goal is? Has it changed for you? What are your thoughts about the purpose of the podcast?
That's a good question. I don't think my goal has really changed with it.
Okay, well, so what is it?
To hang out with you.
Oh, awesome. Well, that part of my goal certainly hasn't changed either. That's one of my favorite parts of this, is hanging out with you. And I still think that this is about exploring something that, like, a foundational text to my entrepreneurship that I've gotten a little bit skeptical or jaded about after finding out about Napoleon Hill's sketchy history of business projects. So it's partly just to review that and to figure out what's still worth considering, what's maybe not so great, to kind of sort out the good and the bad, and also confront my own skepticism a little bit.
For sure. Yeah. We've actually been talking about doing one of my favorite books for the next book that we review. I won't reveal the name of it yet, but apparently the writer has a little bit of a sketchy background too, which is kind of disappointing to hear.
Interesting. So we both have kind of some foundational self-help texts written by
scammers.
people with interesting histories.
Yeah, for sure. So let us know in the comments or wherever if you have any books that you recommend us to listen to, and because we've been kind of thinking about future books that we're going to talk about.
I kind of want to do a couple movies too.
Yeah.
Did I already mention that on the podcast? Like, I don't know.
You mentioned it not on this podcast, but we were on a different podcast, me and my dad, and we kind of talked about
guests.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll post about that guest appearance too.
Yes.
On our social media.
Yeah.
So, are there any success principles that have been? Is there a success principle that you've put into practice since we last got together that's been useful to you, Megan?
I'm gonna be honest, not really. Mostly just because. Well, first of all, there's one that I would like to put into practice, which is the meditation, but where you're really feeling into the meditation and I'm not wording this very well, but bringing in the emotions into the meditation. Okay. So that's something that I want to start integrating, but honestly, I've been in survival mode lately, so I haven't really been putting any into practice. What about you?
Yeah, well, I should have prepared an answer because I asked you that question and I knew it was going to come back on me, and I didn't prepare anything. But I have mostly just been taking the next step,
Yeah.
like just thinking to myself, what do I do next? And then acting on it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on for me right now, and I'm just putting one foot in front of the other.
I feel the exact same way. One thing, this is kind of like a little advertisement here. Maybe I shouldn't do this, but
Oh, let's put it in the middle
okay.
for an advertisement.
Should I just say it right now and then we can put it in, or should I just skip over it?
Yeah, we'll make Brian move it to the middle.
Okay.
Skip to the middle if you want to hear Megan's ad. All right, so the other thing that I wanted to just mention, because I like to talk about scams, because we live in a world of scams, right? So have you heard of Trevor Milton?
I don't believe so.
He started a company that was supposed to be making electric vehicles like semi-trucks, right? Like he was going to revolutionize the shipping industry by creating efficient electric or hybrid semi-trucks for shipping. And turns out it was mostly a scam. He did a big presentation that showed this giant, truck rig going down the street, and it was rolling down this, like there was no engine.
What?
Like the whole presentation of it was deceptive.
Oh my gosh. So what was he like? How did he make money?
He had a ton of investors. Like he had this huge investment. He bought this giant house and property and was living the high life.
Oh
and
my
it was
gosh.
all like backed by nothing. And then he got prosecuted. He was sentenced. And then, believe it or not, in 2024, he paid $1.8 million or donated $1.8 million to the Trump campaign. And this last week, he received a full pardon from Trump.
Oh my goodness, that is something.
Pretty wild. Pretty wild.
Wow, that is crazy.
Give the right campaign contributions and all of your sketchy past is wiped away.
Is cleared.
So
wow, that is crazy.
Wanted to have a little current events minute there. Okay, but anyway, we're not here to talk about Trevor Milton specifically. We're here to talk about Chapter 7 of Think and Grow Rich. And this chapter is long. It's got a lot of stuff in it. It's got like a bunch of lists upon lists, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought maybe we may end up splitting this chapter up into multiple episodes for review. Lucky for you, we'll be on this book even longer than we are right now. If people, I hope people will stick with us through the end of Think and Grow Rich, because we'll be on like episode 20 or something before we move on to the next book. But the chapter's called Organized Planning. And is there anything that sticks out? Well, I'm just trying to think how we should even go through this book. He begins by talking about a mastermind group, allying yourself with people who have your same goal in mind, coming up with a plan. He says, arrange to meet with the members of your... Oh, well, first of all, he says, so ally yourself with a group, and then before forming your alliance, decide what you're going to give in compensation. How are you going to make it worth the while of people to be in your mastermind group? And I think, I don't know. I haven't really put into practice quite what he's saying here, but I have kind of gathered people along the way who have helped me.
Yeah.
For example, my framer, Red Ashby, we've done a lot of stuff together. And I'm not meeting with him to plan my career or anything, but I am meeting with him to design a show, right? and then the next show and the next show. And I think this idea of compensating is an important one because, we do our best to pay the framer on time.
Yeah.
And to pay what he asks. And when I get in a jam, he's there for me. Like, if I've got to get a frame done and I've only got a few days to do it, he'll do it.
That's awesome.
And it's because we worked together so long and because we pay him, right?
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about my help in the studio. There are people who want to come in and work as interns, but I just feel like I don't want to have people work for me for free. Even if they do get experience, I also want them to get compensated monetarily for their time. And I think that it just makes it better for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. I think I hate unpaid internships, so that's really awesome that you do that.
Well, I think the word gets around, it becomes a better opportunity, and people take you more seriously, and then that just boosts your career more than it would otherwise.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've done some unpaid internships?
Let's see. I've only done one actually, really, and I actually didn't really mind it. When I was first becoming a trainer, that I did an internship at a gym for a while that was unpaid. And I didn't mind it, but I was mad because right when I finished the internship, about a week later, they started paying the interns. So I was a little bit pissed about that. But I'm actually not too upset about doing unpaid things for experience, but and then I also did another internship that was for school credit, so that was back in high school. But
I think, and I don't think I'm contradicting myself when I say I think it's really good to be willing to do work just for experience and not for pay.
For sure. Sometimes you have to put in the time before you can get into sometimes you just have to get your foot in the door for something, and then that will take you to paid things, and then take you to higher and higher things because of your experience.
There's an artist in my academy who wanted to intern with actually a professional artist that I know, right? But this professional artist didn't have interns, and the artist in my academy asked, how do I get an internship? And maybe, I asked this artist, I said, go ask again, tell them that you want to work for them at no cost for a month, and just with the idea that at the end of the month they can see if it was worth it. Hopefully you've found a way a rhythm and a way to work that's mutually beneficial, and then they can pay you, after that 1 month trial. So the artist in my academy she went and approached this professional artist and offered to work for a month. And this professional artist, who had never had an intern, initially said no again.
Oh, really?
But then she thought about it for a while, and she was like, maybe I should reconsider. Maybe we should try this out. So I do think that it's a really great way, like it's a great idea to be willing to do that. But also, when people do that to me, I end up paying them anyway because I don't want to not compensate them. So anyway, interrupt or tell me a story if you want to, but I'm just going to kind of plow through some of this because there's so much to cover.
That sounds great.
So that was the so mastermind group, compensation, meet at least twice a week, maintain perfect harmony between yourself and every member of the group. That's a tall order, I think.
That is. I'm trying to think of if there's any company that has
perfect harmony.
Yeah.
I seriously doubt it.
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah, I mean, just my partner is your mom, right? Like we're business partners. Are we in perfect harmony? Certainly not.
Yeah.
But it's also working through the conflict that makes us better,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So I don't know. I'm skeptical about that one, maintaining perfect harmony. I have some notes on this page, and I have no idea what they mean. So one of the things he says is to take advantage of the experience, education, ability, and imagination of other minds. Now, I like that idea quite a bit. When I was first starting out, actually, I dropped out of school in frustration at one point and went around and visited a bunch of professional artists in their studios just to ask kind of get a sense of what they were doing, what was working for them, what I could apply to my own life. I ended up getting back in, there's a whole saga, but I ended up studying with an artist on the East Coast for a while, coming back and finishing my degree. But just visiting all those artists and getting like a view, a bird's eye view of what was working for them was super useful. So that might be another idea in addition to like the mastermind group, but just to get an idea of what other people are doing. And after I visited them, I would kind of keep tabs from afar, like not bug them very much, but just kind of watch what they were doing, see what worked. And if I had a question, maybe I could just pop in really fast to ask them and pop out and be out of their hair, without burdening them.
That's really cool. Yeah, I can't really think of an example in my life where I've done that. I kind of feel like I'm not far enough in my career to relate as much to the mastermind group stuff, but I do like that idea of getting creativity from other people.
Yeah. Well, Napoleon Hill says after you've got this group together, and you're meeting regularly and you're in perfect harmony, you then develop a plan with them. A plan to, build your business, make your fortune, whatever. And your achievement can be no greater than your plans are sound.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. It seems like a little bit like absolute or something.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. I just feel like sometimes you can have plans and things can change, or you can maybe, if you need to like cut ties with someone in your group or bring in other people, I don't think that there's a problem with that.
So maybe be flexible and ready to pivot.
Yeah, exactly. I think pivoting is super important.
So yeah, I agree with you, Megan. I think that's a really good observation. And in this particular paragraph, he calls out a guy named Samuel Insull. Insull is very close to insult, but the last letter is an extra L instead of a T. And he just says this Insull guy built a wonderful plan, or built a huge business, which was built on sound plans, and then the Depression forced him to change his plans, which brought temporary defeat. And it's so fun, so bizarre. He's like, and he's still in that temporary defeat, but also he's getting old, so he might remain in that temporary defeat, and it might become permanent. And if it does become permanent, it will just be for the reason that he lacks the persistence to rebuild his plans.
Huh. So, okay. So he's saying that he did have a sound plan and it worked, but then it failed, so he needs to make a new plan.
He said that he had a great plan, his business was thriving, the depression came. He had to alter his plans. Those plans didn't work, and it's because they weren't sound.
Oh my gosh. That's ridiculous.
Trying to rebuild through the depression.
Yeah, I think that's just silly to say.
So I feel like we should probably cut Mr. Insel a little slack.
Yeah.
Due to the Great Depression. But here's my question just about the kind of the, what's the word? Oh my goodness, Megan, my brain. The way that you reason through this, the logic of it, or,
Yeah.
How do we know if, so according to Napoleon Hill here, if it fails, your plan wasn't sound. Is there any other way to, is there any way to prove that it wasn't because of a sound plan?
I think absolutely not. I think there's so much that could cause you to succeed or fail. And yeah, it's funny that he put so much emphasis on that, because it's like it reminds me just of like the story with like the people who, oh gosh, I'm going to butcher this so badly, but the people who planned to have like a beer company or something, whatever it's called, distillery, is that what it's called? Uh-huh. Anyways, and then the prohibition laws were put in place, so they had to like pivot their business. And then when anyways, it just reminds me of that. I know that's such a bad example, but I just don't think there's any way to prove that your failure is because you didn't have a good plan in the first place.
Yeah. I think it feels a little blamey, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does, especially if you were living through the Depression.
Yeah. I'm glad we haven't had to do that, right? Live through a Great Depression. We had the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, and that was interesting enough, but to make it through a depression, I think, mad respect for those people. Yeah,
seriously.
All right, well, I just want to talk about this for a second. A quitter never wins, and a winner never quits. He says, lift this sentence out, write it on a piece of paper in letters an inch high, and place it where you'll see it every night before you go to sleep, and every morning before you go to work. A quitter never wins, and a winner never quits.
So this reminds me of something that actually my dad said one time, is that if you're thinking about quitting something, ask yourself first, do I want to be doing this thing? And if the answer is no, then just stop doing it. But if the answer is yes, then keep trying at it, maybe from like a different angle or something. So
Your dad said that?
Yeah. Oh. And I totally agree, because I feel like sometimes I feel guilty about like quitting things, and I'm like, or at least I have in the past. I think I'm better about this now, but I'm like, I don't even want to be doing this. Why am I wasting my time? Because I think your energy is so much better spent if you get rid of things that you don't want to even be part of your life, and put that energy towards something you're passionate about and actually want to be doing.
Okay. I am a firm believer in pursuing something you're passionate about, because even within those things, there are tasks that are a drag, right?
Yeah.
Like, tasks that you just don't want to do, and if it's something that you're passionate about, that the bigger picture, it'll be worth doing those things. But if it's something that's you're not passionate about, it's easy to quit, or just kind of do something half-heartedly for a long time if you refuse to quit.
Yeah.
There's a Freakonomics episode number 42, The Upside of Quitting, that talks about why people should quit.
Yeah.
So, anyway, you might want to listen to that and see if you agree with what they're saying there.
For sure, yeah. I think what would be the worst case scenario is you stick with something so long and then you're deep into your career with this thing and you're totally unhappy with that. And I think that would just be a terrible situation.
Yeah. Okay, well, another thing that I've underlined here is some people foolishly believe that only money can make money. This is not true. Desire is the agency through which money is made. What do you think about that?
So some people think that only money can make money, but that's not true. Desire is the pathway that makes money. Yeah, I mean, I think I can agree with that. I definitely disagree with the first statement that money can only be made from money. I definitely think with desire and passion, you can create something from nothing, and you don't have to be from like a rich family or something.
Okay. I'm of two minds about that. I do think that you can make progress without financial means, and maybe even dramatic progress. And also some stability helps, right?
That's very true, yeah.
In many cases, particularly if you're a family person, that can really help. And then I also think about, like, if I did have a trust fund with $100 million or even $1 million, would I be able or more likely to take bigger risks?
Yeah.
And to do bigger things? And would that be less stressful on my family, on my marriage, all of those things, right? So I think there is some truth to what he's saying there, and also it can be oversimplified.
Yeah, I can definitely see both sides of that. So I just barely released my very first YouTube yoga video that I'm super excited about. It's pretty short. It's only 20 minutes, but it's on YouTube. My channel right now, it's just called Megan Richards. I need to change it to Meg's Fitness, but if you look up Megan Richards yoga, it will come up. It's also in the link in my Instagram bio. So if anyone wants to check that out, I'm pretty excited about it. And I've mentioned this before, but my Instagram is just Meg's Fitness, Maegs. So
Megs.fitness,
Megs.fitness, yes.
So if they go to your bio there's a link right to your YouTube,
right to the YouTube
channel, or that specific video?
To that video, yeah. And I only have one video on my channel so far. So yeah, if you go to my Instagram, it links the video right there in my bio. So.
And they can do yoga.
Yep.
Along with you in that video.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, then he talks about leaders. Being a leader.
Yeah,
the
he
major
talks a
attributes
long
of
time.
leadership.
Yeah, he talks a lot about the attributes of a leader.
Yeah. He makes a list here of important factors of leadership. Do you remember any of those? Any of them stick out to you?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, so my mind will be refreshed as you start reading them, but one of them that I remember is not to be indulgent in drugs, money, gambling, and sex, or something along those lines.
Okay, so that's the second the second list.
Okay, sorry.
The second list is the major causes of failure
Of
in
failure
leadership.
as a leader. Okay, yeah. Okay.
I'm sure that they're related and correlated to
Yeah.
some extent, but let me just list these off, and you can see you can make a comment after the fact if any of them stick out to you. So we've got 11 things. 1, unwavering courage. 2, self-control. 3, a keen sense of justice. 4, definiteness of decision. 5, definiteness of plans. 6, the habit of doing more than paid for. 7, a pleasing personality. 8, sympathy and understanding. 9, master of detail. 10, willingness to assume full responsibility. And 11, cooperation.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I do remember those. I think that's a pretty good list. I'm curious to what he means when he says a sense of justice.
Well, let me read that section here. A sense of justice. Without a sense of fairness and justice, no leader can command and retain the respect of his followers. So not a lot of new information in
Okay, yeah. Okay. That's interesting. It's kind of funny, like, given what we know about Napoleon Hill, how he, like, maybe doesn't fit some of these characteristics, like with as far as like integrity goes and that sort of thing. I don't know if integrity is it's not specifically on there, but like.
Well, it's interesting, you can be feeling a certain way about your past even when you're writing something. So maybe he felt a certain way about his past. And actually, there's another, where is it? There's a thing in here that talks about honesty. I think it'll come up in a minute.
Okay.
So when we get there, I'll mention it. But another thing to consider is that, from what I've read, his wife did some of the writing of this book as well.
That is so interesting. Yeah, you were telling me about that, which is super interesting.
One of his wives, he ended up having several marriages, not at the same time, but in sequence.
Okay.
And I can imagine some of the things being like, and don't forget honesty, Napoleon. Like, don't forget this aspect of it. That's what I'm imagining. I could be totally wrong about all of those dynamics in making this book. But I would love to know what the specific contributions
I know, I'm
his
so
wife made to the book.
We should maybe see if we can do some research sometime and see if we can learn more about his wife and maybe see what parts of it she wrote specifically.
Yeah. Well, I think we can poke around. I just wonder if it's even possible to uncover that. One of the things that stood out to me in this list was number 6, the habit of doing more than paid for. I actually really like that.
Yeah.
One of the things that makes me like, commissions are very hard for me to do as an artist. So one of the things I like to do is sometimes I'll do 3 paintings so that the patron can choose one.
Oh, wow. That's
just
awesome.
like going 2 extra miles so that they have a choice and that they feel like I've put sufficient effort into what they end up getting.
Yeah, that's really great.
And then, like, when you're hiring people and they're coming in and working and they put in their hours, you have to have the work. You have to be ahead of them so that they've got work ready to go for them, right?
Yeah.
And then work into the night sometimes to get things done that need to be done. So that idea of doing more than you're paid for, It's true that it's maybe tied to like the hustle culture that a
Yeah.
lot of people are complaining about these days, and I agree. Like we shouldn't have to work 90 hours a week for a living wage, right? But also in practical terms, like I don't know another way to do it. I don't know another way to build a business without putting in all of the time to resolve all the problems that need to
Yeah,
be
that you
resolved and
won't be
things.
paid, and you won't be paid for that time if you're the owner of the business.
Yeah. So I don't know. People can weigh in on that if they want.
Yeah.
But the habit of doing more than one is paid for. Another one that sticks out to me is a pleasing personality, and that makes me think about doing this podcast with you because we like to hear you laugh.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, Dad.
Okay, so he talks about how in the future the relationship of employer and employee will be different, one of mutual cooperation rather than where the employer is, taking advantage of the labor of the employee, which is very interesting because a couple pages before that, he's like, you can't really expect a leader, a non-leader, a follower to be making as much money as a leader. Like
Oh.
we should expect that a leader should make a lot more money than a follower. But then he goes in and says that in the future, it's going to be about mutual cooperation.
Huh.
Any thoughts about that?
That's really interesting. Do you feel like that's the case, that like we're moving towards that, where like employers and employees are more like coexisting? Because I kind of feel like it depends on the company, kind of, because I worked at a company where I feel like that was very much not the case. But I feel like, I feel like the companies I work for right now are pretty, it's not like that dynamic where the leader or the person in charge looks down on you and is like trying to make you feel like an inferior person. But I don't know. I think maybe it just depends on who you're working for.
Well, it's interesting that in 2025, many, many decades after this book was written and this prediction was made, or prophecy or vision of the future, that you've experienced both,
Yeah.
And I think that it comes and goes, things swing in one direction, then they swing back. Unions organize to negotiate for better pay, and then unions get crushed. Here in Utah, there was just a law passed against labor organizing or labor negotiating.
Labor negotiating. Can you explain what that means?
Well, I wish I knew more about the details of that legislation, but basically the teachers' unions and like firefighters' unions and stuff, the government is not required to work with them and to up wages or to sustain wages.
Really?
So unions usually form as labor, all of the workers get together and say, let's not work unless we negotiate this higher pay. And if they won't negotiate with us, then we won't work, right?
Yeah.
Or we'll strike or whatever. Utah has always been a right to work state, which means you can work outside of the union constraints. But also the teachers' unions, for example, had some power to negotiate with the government about wages and working conditions and things like that. And this legislation just diminished that power in Utah. So I think the vision that Napoleon Hill puts forth right here is an idealistic one, and it's an ideal that some people want to work towards, and an ideal that some people resist. And It seems to work well in places like Germany. I think unions do a good job in some areas like that and the business owners work well with the unions to make a better
Okay.
living for everybody.
Okay. That's interesting.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I definitely think when employers are good to their employees, it really decreases the turnover rate, which is what I saw at this company that I was working at. It would be like people would work there for like 2 weeks and then quit, and then we'd get new people like all the time.
Yeah.
I think I was there for, well, I was there for like almost a year, I think, but I was one of like I saw so many people like come in and then go out.
Yeah, interesting. So there's a couple ways to address that. One would be to say the free market should address it, right? So those companies should recognize that their turnover is insane and adjust their policies because they see that the turnover is bad.
Yeah.
And there's other ways, which is like government regulation, saying you need to have a minimum wage or raise the minimum wage, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Or have let them take a break every hour or whatever. All of those things are kind of government regulations, but a company could choose on its own to do similar things. This is our company policy to give these breaks and to give these raises and to not be high pressure or whatever,
Yeah.
Okay, so let's run through the 10 major causes of failure in leadership really fast and see if you have any comments on this. So they are, there's 10. So here they are. 1, inability to organize details. 2, unwillingness to render humble service. 3, expectation of pay for what they know instead of what they do with that which they know. 4, fear of competition from followers. 5, lack of imagination. 6, selfishness. 7, intemperance. 8, disloyalty. 9, emphasis of the authority of leadership. And 10, emphasis of title. Assistant to the regional manager. Wait, which one did he like? Did he like
assistant regional manager?
He wanted to be called assistant regional manager,
but he would call him assistant to the regional manager.
What's the difference? Is there a difference? Okay, so any of those stick out to you?
Let's see. I was thinking about. Oh, sorry, my brain is having a brain fog. So the last two are emphasis on title, and what was the other one? Emphasis on what?
Authority.
On authority, okay.
And the thing that he's trying to say there is trying to force people to do stuff instead of, having sympathy, understanding, and fairness.
Yeah. I mean, I think it sounds like a good list of things to avoid.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think it's a good list. Yeah. I'm certainly anti-authoritarian.
Yeah.
Any boss that's selfish, doesn't have imagination, is all about title and authority. I think fear of competition from followers is interesting. I've seen people, bosses that teach people and mentor them, knowing that those employees may go on to do something that, have their own business and that might even compete with the boss's business. I think that's a generous way to approach life. You know,
Yeah.
just like, I like that.
That one is interesting. Yeah, I've heard, like, just in the social media space, I know there's like a lot of like competing brands that are online. And I've heard like it's like a common thing for certain brands to like block other brands on Instagram. Like if you own like a clothes company, they'll like block other clothes companies because they don't want to like see any of their stuff.
Oh.
It's like kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That probably happens with artists too. Like,
probably.
I don't want to see this artist's success. Or,
Yeah.
My social media approach has been, if they follow me, I'll follow them back. You know,
That's how I
let's
feel
have a
too.
relationship.
Although I feel bad because when I first started my Instagram, or I released it to the public, my fitness Instagram, I like was so anxious about it that I would not like look at my phone, and so I got like I think like 100 followers or something, and I think there's like still people that I haven't followed back, like because sometimes I'll like see people I'm not following back and I'll follow them. So if I'm not following you, then message me and I will
Send me
follow
a
you back.
message.
Yeah, because I was just like I remember I was so anxious to even look at my phone because I was so like embarrassed. So I know for sure there's like people following me that I haven't followed back, but
But if you follow the Self-Help Podcast Instagram, we'll follow
we
you back.
follow
for sure,
back.
right?
Yeah, we follow back on that Instagram for sure.
I used to follow people back whenever they added me, but there's a limit.
Yeah.
You know, you can't follow more than 7,500 people on Instagram.
Yeah.
And that is why I don't follow more people,
Yeah.
which is a bummer because I would love to follow everybody that's following me. The people that I don't typically follow back are people with giant followings and they're following very few people. And I don't know them personally, right? So it feels like they're just kind of adding a bunch of people and then dropping them as they go. And
That probably is the case. They're just like adding people so that you'll follow them and then they'll just unfollow you.
Yeah. That feels a little gross to me.
It does, yeah. I hate that.
All right, so he goes on to talk about the future and this kind of ideal era that we're moving into, and he talks about how leadership is going to be in this kind of new leadership that will be required in the era. So he talks about politics. We could say a ton about politics and whether things have changed or not in 2025, but he doesn't really go into those specifics in this paragraph. So let's keep moving on. The second is banking. The third is industry. Now, I'm interested in hearing this one on this fourth thing, which is the religion. Can't talk. Religion. Let me just read this paragraph and I want to hear what you think about this. Fourth, the religious leader of the future will be forced to give more attention to the temporal needs of his followers in the solution of their economic and personal problems of the present, and less attention to the dead past and the yet unborn future.
This is so interesting because I think that we see this a lot now because at least in the church that I was raised in, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they have made a lot of changes recently that I think some people are happy about and some people aren't so happy about. For example, they've changed the garments, which is the underclothing that LDS people wear to anyways, so now they can wear tank tops with their garments, which has never been allowed before. Another thing is they've recently said that it's okay to get tattoos, which was previously not not quote unquote allowed in the church. Not that they would like kick you out, but like
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any repercussions for having
Yeah,
tattoos.
I don't think
It was
there's-
more just
I
like
mean-
looked down on, right?
yeah, it was just looked down on, like very like very like ooh like yeah, like very looked down on if you have tattoos, and now they've said that you can have tattoos. And I think some people who are more maybe nuanced in the church, I think are very happy about these changes because it's giving members of that church more leeway to do things that maybe they wanted to do but weren't necessarily allowed to. And then I think there's also a conversation about that some people don't like it because they think that the doctrine shouldn't change in the church, and they don't want things like that to change. So, but based on what Napoleon Hill is saying here, I think that, and I really don't know much about other churches outside of this church, but I think this church is moving in that direction of changing things to please the members a little bit more.
So do you agree that they are giving more attention to the temporal needs, solving their economic and personal problems, rather than giving attention to the dead past and the unborn future?
I think, yeah, I would agree with that. It's helping, probably the personal problems of members. I think definitely that the LDS Church is trying to part ways with their past, and just in that, I mean, I don't want to go super into like church history or anything, but I think they are trying to move towards being like more progressive than they have been in the past. And I think they're trying to, I mean, whether it's for the right or for selfish reasons or unselfish reasons, I think they're trying to please people and solve their complaints about the church. I mean, yeah.
It's interesting. There's always this tension between tradition and progress.
Yeah.
And I also heard somebody say that the most successful churches are the ones that adapt the best, but pretend like there's no adapting happening. Like that they're remaining true to unchanging truths while also changing.
That's so interesting. So do you think that the LDS Church is doing that or trying to do that?
Well, there's always tensions. Like, it's such a big ship to steer right now. There's millions and millions of members throughout the world, and the people who go to church in Africa have different needs than the people who go to church in Utah, right?
Yeah.
And so that makes it more complex to establish policy.
For sure, yeah.
For such a giant organization, and it doesn't, it doesn't maybe have the flexibility that a small fledgling church does, like it did in its early days.
Yeah.
So those are all, interesting things. I guess my take on this is that what I think he's saying here is you need to feed people before you can feed their souls. If they're just trying to survive, then they can't really thrive and think about spiritual things quite as well.
I agree with that.
But this thing, less attention to the dead past, is interesting. It could, in the LDS context, refer both to tradition, holding on to tradition, but also, in the LDS Church, that we actually do work for the dead, right? Like baptisms for the dead and family history work.
That's true.
Before everybody was doing family history work and getting their DNA tested and stuff, the church had a really big family history program and library that people came to do their own research. So I don't think it's going to. I honestly don't think that it's changing much. I think the internet is making some dramatic changes, and
It's so funny because I feel like, sorry to interrupt you.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I feel like people are so fascinated by Mormons right now because there's so many Mormon shows that are coming out, and I just always see people like who are just so fascinated by the Mormon culture, the Utah culture.
It is. I mean, I think one of the reasons it's interesting is because it's the only group that kind of settled a whole region in the U.S.
Yeah.
and had relative isolation for so long, and so there's a kind of a culture that has resisted becoming like the surrounding cultures for
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah, it's such a distinct culture to Utah, and you can't really find that anywhere else except maybe like, I mean, I know there's areas that are like Mormon colonies, but Utah is just, it's definitely the most concentrated.
I mean, in other parts of the world, I'd say that you definitely can find regions that are somewhat isolated, like Mormonism has been. But in the United States, no, because the United States has been a melting pot, right? I mean, you find like more cultural groups in specific areas, like, French speakers in Louisiana and, German speakers in the North Midwest, things like that.
Yeah.
But a whole state, and like there, what we call the Mormon corridor from Idaho into Utah and down into Arizona, that for a long time was resisted assimilation, and it's just it is interesting, I think. Okay, one other interesting thing before we close this episode. The sixth thing on his list is journalism. I'm just going to read this. Let me know what you think. New leaders will be required in the field of journalism. Newspapers of the future, to be conducted successfully, must be divorced from special privilege and relieved from the subsidy of advertising. They must cease to be organs of propaganda for the interests which patronize their advertising columns. The types of newspaper which publishes scandal and lewd pictures will eventually go the way of all forces which debauch the human mind. Two ideas there. One, that news will be not subsidized by special interests. And two, like, what do you call those? The Inquirer, or the basically the TMZ. What do you call those?
Oh, like
Tabloids.
Tabloids, yeah.
will be gone. Will die. Right.
That is so funny.
What do you think about those two
Yeah.
ideas?
Well, first of all, I think more than ever, news outlets are like more biased than ever. I think especially this past decade, it's been crazy. It's hard to like find a neutral sources that aren't like skewed in some way or extremely biased. And I don't. And then regarding the tabloids, I mean, I don't think they're going anywhere. Although I do see more like tabloid information like online, I would say. But I mean, it's the same thing. But like, yeah, like I'm always seeing like tabloid like headlines on Snapchat or TikTok or something.
So maybe one of the takeaways from this chapter is that the more things change, the more they stay the same. We definitely have not. Yeah, I agree with you. Journalism has not made these high-minded advances that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've tried. People have tried.
For sure, yeah.
They've tried to, and I always love, some of my favorite podcasts, they have Patreons or whatever, and they say, we don't do advertising because we don't want to be beholden to our advertisers, right? We want to be independent. And I think that's something that I'm interested in.
That's really cool.
But if you want to give us $1 million to advertise on we'll change our minds, right, yeah. Megan?
And I was going to say, that's why we're our own advertisers.
That's right. We just hope that Megan doesn't turn sinister in her pressures to say certain things on this podcast.
Oh, I don't think that will happen.
Okay, well, anything else before we wrap up this episode?
I don't think so. I think that was everything.
Great. Well, join us next time for the second part, reviewing Chapter 7.
Awesome. Thank you.